The transmission from the Galactic Council had come as a complete shock to the leaders of Earth. In all their decades of cautious diplomacy and slow integration into the galactic community, never had they imagined facing an inquisition of this magnitude. The very fact that the Council had deigned to summon them was a sign of grave concern. President Alara Zhao of the United States stared at the flickering holographic image of the Council's emissary, her brow furrowed with worry. "You're telling us that humanity's ancestors committed a transgression severe enough to warrant this level of scrutiny? How is that even possible? We've always believed our early space exploration was welcomed with open arms by the galactic community." The emissary, a wizened Vosgian diplomat named Jaren, maintained a solemn, impassive expression. "I'm afraid the details of this matter are classified at the highest levels, President Zhao. What I can say is that the Galactic Council has become aware of certain historical events that were deliberately concealed from your people. We require your most trusted representatives to appear before the Council to provide a full accounting." The other world leaders, gathered around the conference table, exchanged troubled glances. For decades, the nations of Earth had carefully navigated the delicate political landscape of the galactic community, acutely aware of their relatively primitive technological and social development compared to the ancient civilizations that dominated the stars. To now be summoned in this manner was deeply unsettling. Prime Minister Akiko Nishimura of Japan cleared her throat, her voice laced with trepidation. "Jaren, surely you understand the gravity of your request. Convening a delegation to travel to the Galactic Council chambers will require an enormous logistical effort. Not to mention the political fallout we'll face at home if word of this leaked to the public. Can you at least provide us with more context?" The Vosgian emissary shook his head slowly. "I'm afraid I have been instructed to provide only the bare minimum of information. The full truth of this matter is known only to the highest echelons of the Galactic Council. What I can tell you is that the stability and peace of the entire galactic community may very well hinge on the outcome of this inquiry. Failure to comply will have grave consequences for your world." A heavy silence fell over the room as the Earth leaders grappled with the weight of Jaren's words. The prospect of facing such a monumental challenge, with the fate of their entire civilization potentially at stake, was overwhelming. Yet they knew they had no choice but to answer the Council's summons. President Zhao straightened in her chair, steeling herself. "Very well, Jaren. You can inform the Galactic Council that we will send our most trusted representatives to appear before them. But I must impress upon you the importance of providing us with more information to prepare our case. The stakes are far too high for us to enter this blindly." The Vosgian emissary inclined his head slightly. "I understand your concerns, President Zhao. I will relay your request to the Council, though I cannot guarantee they will be willing to divulge any further details. Time is of the essence. You have one of your Earth cycles to assemble your delegation and make the necessary arrangements for travel to the Galactic Council chambers. I will be in touch with the specifics." With that, the holographic image of Jaren flickered and vanished, leaving the Earth leaders in a palpable state of unease. Across the globe, the news of the Galactic Council's summons would ripple through the corridors of power, igniting a frantic scramble to confront this unprecedented challenge. The grand halls of the Galactic Council chambers were a sight to behold, a triumph of alien architectural elegance that left the Earth delegation in awe. Towering columns of iridescent crystal soared upwards, supporting a vast, domed ceiling that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Intricate patterns of alien glyphs and symbols adorned the walls, relaying the history that spanned millennia. President Zhao led her team of diplomats and advisors as they were ushered into the central chamber, their footsteps echoing against the polished marble floors. Seated in a sweeping semicircle were the representatives of the Galactic Council, their expressions largely inscrutable behind their exotic features. At the center of the arc stood Jaren, the Vosgian emissary who had delivered the summons. As the Earth delegation took their places, he raised a hand to call the chamber to order. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I present to you the delegation from the planet Earth." Jaren's voice reverberated through the chamber, commanding the attention of all present. They have answered our summons to face the inquiry regarding the actions of their ancestors. President Zhao stepped forward, her posture straight and her gaze unwavering. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, I speak on behalf of the people of Earth. We are humbled and concerned by the gravity of your summons. As I expressed to your emissary, we are eager to understand the nature of this inquiry and to provide whatever information or assistance you require. A murmur rippled through the council chambers as Charon raised a hand to silence the other representatives. President Zhao, the Galactic Council has become privy to historical records that reveal a dark secret about your world's past. It is our belief that your ancestors, in their early steps into the stars, committed a grievous transgression that threatened the stability and peace of the entire galactic community. President Zhao felt a chill run down her spine, but she maintained her composure. A transgression? I'm afraid I don't understand. Our people have always believed that our initial forays into space were welcomed and encouraged by the galactic community. Charon's expression darkened. That, President Zhao, is precisely the problem. Your ancestors went to great lengths to conceal their actions, erasing all evidence of their misdeeds from the historical record. But the Galactic Council has uncovered the truth, and we demand an explanation. The Earth delegation exchanged troubled glances, their minds racing to comprehend the gravity of the situation. What could their ancestors have possibly done that was so egregious, and how had it been hidden for so long? Prime Minister Nishimura stepped forward, her voice laced with concern. Honored members of the Council, I can assure you that the current leaders of Earth know nothing of this supposed transgression. If there is indeed a dark secret in our past, we are as much in the dark about it as you claim to be. I implore you to provide us with more information so that we might better understand the situation and mount a proper defense. The council chambers fell silent as the alien representatives exchanged pointed looks. Finally, a towering Kagarian representative stood, his deep bass voice rumbling through the chamber. It is the decision of the Galactic Council that you, the representatives of Earth, must be made aware of the full extent of your ancestors' crimes. Only then can you truly comprehend the gravity of the situation you now face. He turned his gaze upon the Earth delegation, his eyes glowing with an ancient, unsettling wisdom. Your people's ancestors dared to defy the natural order of the galaxy, and for that, they must be held accountable. The Earth delegation sat in stunned silence as the Kagarian representative's words echoed through the Grand Chamber. Defying the natural order of the galaxy? What could that possibly mean? President Zhao exchanged a worried glance with Prime Minister Nishimura, their expressions mirroring the growing sense of dread within. Charon stepped forward, his grave demeanor adding weight to his words. Representatives of Earth, the Galactic Council has uncovered evidence that your ancestors, in their earliest days of space exploration, made contact with an advanced alien civilization, one whose very existence was deemed too dangerous to be allowed to continue. President Zhao felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying that our people committed genocide? The very thought made her stomach churn. The Vosgian emissary shook his head solemnly. Not genocide, per se, but something even more egregious. Your ancestors did not merely eliminate this alien civilization. They actively manipulated and suppressed its development, going so far as to rewrite its history and erase all traces of its existence from the galactic record. Prime Minister Nishimura's eyes widened in horror. But why would they do such a thing? Surely there must have been a reason, some justification for such a heinous act. Charon's expression darkened. The reasons matter little now, Prime Minister. What is done, and the consequences of your ancestors' actions have reverberated through the cosmos for millennia. The Galactic Council has been tasked with maintaining the delicate balance of power and preserving the natural progression of civilizations. Your people's interference with this process was an unforgivable transgression. President Zhao felt a surge of indignation. But we had no knowledge of this. How can you hold us accountable for the actions of our distant ancestors? She took a step forward, her voice rising with conviction. We are not the ones who committed this alleged crime. We are the inheritors of a legacy we never knew existed, and now you seek to pass judgment on us for it." The Kagarian representative raised a massive, clawed hand, silencing Zhao with a stern look. "It matters not whether you were aware of your ancestors' actions. The fact remains that the damage has been done, and the Galactic Council must now determine the appropriate course of reckoning." Charon nodded in agreement. "President Zhao, Prime Minister Nishimura, you and your delegation have been summoned here to account for this transgression. The Council will carefully examine the evidence and decide the fate of your world. But I warn you, the consequences could be dire, for your people and for the stability of the entire galactic community." The Earth representatives exchanged desperate looks, the weight of the Council's accusations pressing down upon them. They had come seeking answers, but instead found themselves facing the prospect of a judgment that could forever alter the course of their civilization. The race was on to uncover the truth of their forgotten past and mount a defense before the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with a tense energy as the Earth delegation took their seats, facing the imposing semicircle of alien representatives. President Zhao and her team had spent endless hours poring over the historical records they had hastily procured, desperately searching for any clues that could aid in their defense. Charon stepped forward, his voice commanding the attention of the room. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, the representatives of Earth have had time to review the evidence we have presented. I now invite them to make their case." President Zhao rose, squaring her shoulders. "Esteemed Council members, we have heard the grave accusations leveled against our ancestors, and we do not take them lightly. However, I must impress upon you that the people of Earth today had no knowledge of these alleged transgressions until your summons. We are as much in the dark about our own history as you claim to be." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the alien representatives. "Our researchers have scoured our historical archives, and we have found no mention of the advanced civilization you claim our ancestors suppressed. In fact, the earliest records of our space exploration describe a cautious, halting process of first contact with various alien cultures, all of which were welcomed into the galactic community." A murmur rippled through the council chambers, and Charon raised a hand to silence the whispers. "President Zhao, your words are certainly compelling, but they do not negate the evidence we have uncovered. The Galactic Council has access to records and testimonies that your people have long since buried or destroyed." Prime Minister Nishimura stepped forward, her expression resolute. "Then we implore you, Charon, to share this evidence with us. How can we mount a meaningful defense if we are kept in the dark about the very details of the transgression we are accused of?" The Vosgian emissary shook his head regretfully. "I'm afraid that is not possible, Prime Minister. The nature of this evidence is of the utmost sensitivity, known only to the highest echelons of the Galactic Council. To divulge its contents would be a breach of our most sacred protocols." A Tarlaxian delegate, her iridescent scales glimmering in the chamber's light, leaned forward. "The Council cannot simply take your word at face value, representatives of Earth. You claim ignorance of your ancestors' actions, yet the very fact that this history has been buried suggests a conscious effort to conceal the truth." President Zhao opened her mouth to protest, but the Tarlaxian raised a clawed hand to silence her. "If you are indeed innocent of these charges, then you must prove it. The burden of proof lies with you, for the stability of the entire galactic community hangs in the balance." Tension mounted in the chamber as the Earth delegation huddled, desperately trying to formulate a coherent strategy. The weight of the Council's accusations was palpable, and the prospect of their world facing grave consequences for the sins of the past seemed increasingly unavoidable. The Galactic Council chambers had fallen into a hushed silence as the Earth delegation conferred in hushed whispers, their expressions etched with growing concern. The gravity of the accusations they faced was palpable, and the stakes could not have been higher. After what felt like an eternity, President Zhao stepped forward, her composure steadying as she addressed the assembled alien representatives. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, we have heard your charges and understand the severity of the transgression you claim our ancestors committed. However, as we have stated, we possess no knowledge of these alleged actions, nor any records that would corroborate your claims." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. "We acknowledge the importance of maintaining the delicate balance of power and progression within the galactic community, but to hold us accountable for misdeeds we did not commit, and of which we had no prior awareness, seems inherently unjust." Prime Minister Nishimura stepped forward, her voice firm. "If the evidence you possess is truly as sensitive and damning as you claim, then we implore you to share it with us. Only then can we hope to mount a meaningful defense and convince this council of our innocence." The Kagarian representative, who had remained silent throughout the proceedings, finally rumbled a response. "Your pleas for understanding are noted, representatives of Earth. However, the Galactic Council has deliberated extensively, and we have reached a verdict." He turned his piercing gaze upon the Earth delegation, his expression grave. "Your ancestors' actions, whether known to you or not, have had profound and lasting consequences upon the balance of power in this galaxy. The transgression they committed was an unforgivable breach of the natural order, one that threatened the very foundations of our civilization." President Zhou felt her heart sink, a premonition of the Council's judgment weighing heavily upon her. "Then what is to be our fate, honored counselors? Will you condemn us for the sins of our past, even as we struggle to comprehend them?" The Kagarian representative raised a massive, clawed hand. "It is the decision of the Galactic Council that the planet Earth and its people must face severe consequences for the actions of their ancestors. Your world's technological and social development has been deemed a threat to the stability of the galaxy, and as such, measures must be taken to ensure your compliance with the Council's directives." Charon stepped forward, his expression grim. "Representatives of Earth, the Galactic Council has determined that your world must undergo a period of profound transformation. Your current social, political, and technological structures will be dismantled, and you will be required to rebuild them under the guidance and supervision of the Council." President Zhou's eyes widened in horror. "Dismantle our world? You cannot be serious. Such an action would devastate our civilization, throwing our people into chaos and despair. Surely there must be another way to address this alleged transgression without resorting to such drastic measures." The Kagarian representative's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "There is no other way, President Zhou. The transgressions of your ancestors have left us no choice. The Galactic Council has spoken, and its verdict is final. You and your people will comply, or face the consequences of your refusal." Stunned silence fell over the Earth delegation as the weight of the Council's judgment sank in. The fate of their world now hung in the balance, and the prospect of such a radical upheaval filled them with a sense of dread and uncertainty. Yet they knew they had no choice but to accept the Council's decree, for the alternative was unthinkable. The journey back to Earth was a somber one for the delegation. The weight of the Galactic Council's verdict bore down upon them, a crushing burden that threatened to consume their every waking thought. How could they possibly convey the gravity of the situation to their respective governments and the people of their world? As the transport ship pierced the Earth's atmosphere and the familiar blue and green hues of their home planet came into view, President Zhou felt a pang of anguish. This was the world their ancestors had risked so much to protect, and now it was to be torn asunder at the behest of an ancient and unforgiving galactic order. When the delegation finally touched down in the capital city, they were met with a throng of reporters and government officials, all clamoring for answers. Prime Minister Nishimura raised a hand, silencing the din. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have returned from the Galactic Council with news of the utmost gravity." Her voice wavered slightly, betraying the turmoil that roiled within. "The Council has determined that the actions of our ancestors have had dire consequences for the stability of the galaxy. As a result, they have handed down a decree that will forever change the course of our world." The reporters erupted into a cacophony of questions, but Nishimura raised her hand once more, commanding their attention. "The Galactic Council has ordered that our current social, political, and technological structures be dismantled and rebuilt under their direct supervision. This process will be extensive and will require the full cooperation of all nations on Earth. Stunned silence fell over the crowd as the Prime Minister's words sank in, dismantling their world. Under the supervision of the Galactic Council, it was an unthinkable proposition, one that threatened to upend the very foundations of human civilization. President Zhao stepped forward, her expression grim. I know this news comes as a shock to all of you, as it did to us, but we must heed the Council's decree, for the alternative is unacceptable. The stability of the entire galactic community hangs in the balance, and we have been given no choice but to comply. The reporters surged forward, shouting a barrage of increasingly frantic questions. How would this transformation be implemented? What would become of their political and economic systems? Would they be allowed to maintain their cultural identities? The delegation found themselves overwhelmed, their attempts to provide reassurance quickly drowned out by the clamor. It was only when a lone voice cut through the din that the crowd fell silent. An elderly woman, her weathered face etched with a mix of fear and determination, stepped forward. President Zhao, Prime Minister Nishimura, are you telling us that the very world we have known and built is to be torn apart? That our children and grandchildren will grow up in a society not of our own making? She shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. How can we simply accept such a fate when it was forced upon us by the actions of those long dead? The delegation exchanged troubled glances, knowing that they had no satisfactory answer to the woman's anguished question. For in the face of the Galactic Council's judgment, the people of Earth were utterly powerless. The reckoning had begun, and the transformation of their world was inevitable. In the weeks that followed the delegation's return from the Galactic Council, a sense of dread and uncertainty gripped the nations of Earth. The order to dismantle their existing social, political, and technological structures had sent shockwaves through governments and populations alike, sparking protests, riots, and growing civil unrest. President Zhao and Prime Minister Nishimura found themselves at the center of a maelstrom, forced to navigate the delicate task of convincing their people to comply with the Galactic Council's decree. It was a Herculean effort, made all the more challenging by the deep-seated resentment many felt towards the alien authorities who sought to dictate the fate of their world. How can we simply hand over control of our societies to those who know nothing of our history and culture? Raged the leader of a nationalist movement during a televised address. This is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty, a thinly veiled attempt to subjugate us under the guise of transformation. The government's attempts to quell the growing unrest were met with increasing resistance, as citizens from all walks of life took to the streets in protest. Schools, businesses, and even essential services ground to a halt as the populace dug in their heels, unwilling to acquiesce to the Galactic Council's demands. President Zhao, weary from the endless negotiations and confrontations, convened an emergency meeting with her closest advisors. "We're running out of time," she said, her voice laced with frustration. "The Council's deadline is looming, and we've made little progress in convincing the people to accept this transformation." Prime Minister Nishimura nodded gravely. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly. If we can't find a way to unite the nations of Earth behind a common cause, we risk not only the Council's wrath, but the complete collapse of our societies." The room fell silent as the advisors contemplated the grim reality they faced. Suddenly, a young diplomat named Akira Takeda spoke up, his eyes gleaming with a newfound determination. "What if we reframe this transformation not as a punishment, but as an opportunity?" he suggested. "If we can harness the people's creativity and resilience, we may be able to shape the changes the Council demands in a way that empowers and uplifts our societies." President Zhao considered his words, a spark of hope igniting within her. "Go on, Akira. I'm listening." Takeda leaned forward, his voice gaining momentum. "Instead of passively accepting the Council's decree, we can take an active role in redefining our world. We can use this as a chance to address long-standing issues: inequality, climate change, global conflict, and build a better future for all of humanity." Prime Minister Nishimura's eyes widened. "You're suggesting we embrace the transformation rather than resist it, that we leverage the Council's demands to our advantage." Takeda nodded emphatically. "Precisely. If we can convince the people that this is not an imposition, but a chance to create a society that works for everyone, we may be able to rally them behind a common cause." The room erupted in a flurry of discussion as the advisors contemplated the audacious plan. It was a risky gambit, to be sure, but the alternative, continued civil unrest and the wrath of the Galactic Council, was unthinkable. President Zhao raised a hand, silencing the room. Then it settled. "We will present this vision to the people, and we will do everything in our power to make it a reality. The future of our world depends on it." With renewed determination, the Earth delegation set out to convince their people that the path forward, while daunting, could lead to a brighter tomorrow, if they were willing to embrace the transformation. As the final deadline set by the Galactic Council loomed, the nations of Earth found themselves in a race against time, their populations mobilized in a massive coordinated effort to reshape their world. Gone were the bitter divisions and entrenched ideologies that had once defined their political and social landscapes. In their place, a newfound sense of unity and purpose emerged, one forged in the face of an unprecedented challenge. President Zhao and Prime Minister Nishimura stood alongside their fellow world leaders, casting aside old rivalries as they worked tirelessly to enact the transformation demanded by the Galactic Council. Sweeping reforms were implemented, dismantling outdated systems and ushering in a new era of global cooperation and interconnectedness. The old order gave way to bold, innovative solutions that addressed long-standing issues: climate change, wealth inequality, and the fragmentation of human societies. Cutting-edge technologies, once the domain of a privileged few, were democratized and repurposed to serve the greater good. Renewable energy sources were rapidly scaled, while automated systems and advanced AI became the cornerstones of a new, sustainable economy. With the guidance of the Galactic Council's representatives, the people of Earth found themselves thrust into a whirlwind of change, but one they embraced with a newfound sense of purpose. What had once seemed like an unthinkable imposition was now seen as an opportunity to transcend the limitations of their past and forge a path towards a brighter future. As the final deadline approached, the Earth delegation, led by President Zhao and Prime Minister Nishimura, prepared to return to the Galactic Council chambers. The transformation of their world was complete, and they were determined to present their case for acceptance into the galactic community. The grand halls of the Council were once again filled with the hushed anticipation of the assembled alien representatives. Charon, the Vosgian emissary, stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "The Galactic Council has been monitoring the progress of Earth's transformation with great interest. We have seen your people come together in ways we never thought possible, embracing change and working tirelessly to reshape your world." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the Earth delegation. "It is with cautious optimism that we now invite you, the representatives of this new Earth, to make your case for acceptance into the galactic community." President Zhao and Prime Minister Nishimura exchanged a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement of the monumental journey that had brought them to this moment. Stepping forward, they presented the Council with a comprehensive report detailing the radical transformation of their world, the technological advancements, the social and political reforms, and the renewed commitment to the universal values of peace, cooperation, and sustainability. As the alien representatives listened intently, their expressions shifted from skepticism to genuine intrigue. The Earth delegation's vision, once seemingly impossible, had been realized through the determination and resilience of their people. Finally, the Kagarian representative rose, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "The Galactic Council has carefully reviewed the evidence presented by the representatives of Earth. We are impressed by the scale and scope of the transformation you have achieved, and by your evident commitment to the preservation of peace and the advancement of your civilization." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the Earth delegation. It is the decision of the Galactic Council that the planet Earth and its people be welcomed into the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that come with such membership. A collective gasp of disbelief and joy rippled through the Earth delegation as they realized the magnitude of the Council's decision. After generations of being viewed with suspicion and distrust, their world had finally earned the respect and acceptance of the galactic community. President Zhao and Prime Minister Nishimura exchanged a triumphant handshake, their eyes shining with the promise of a new era. The future of Earth, once shrouded in uncertainty, now glimmered with the boundless potential of what lay ahead. As the Earth delegation prepared to depart the Galactic Council chambers, they knew that the journey was far from over. The challenges that had once threatened to tear their world apart had only served to forge a new, more resilient and united humanity, one poised to take its rightful place among the stars.